All right. I'm just going to give everybody a couple minutes. I'm streaming crazy early in the day compared to usual. I was going for 420, but I've had a dentist appointment, so I've had a day. But while everybody is getting on here, let's share this stream out. And we will have a good stream today. I got good stuff going on. But let's blaze one up. I wanted to try out a new song here for an intro, so let's just smoke and have one more song before we get the shit going. Hear this out, guys. Start this out. I'm not going to try to drag on. We're trying to do this in between here. I know there's a lot of people streaming right now. Jimmy and Stabby and Revolutionary Blackout Network. So we are doing an early stream the same time as everyone. So hope you guys are checking this out later. If you are, I usually stream at midnight, doing an early show for Weed Wednesday. And we are going to start today out with, of course, some legislative news, some states and weed. So we're going to jump right into it while we're in the in-between here. Getting into it, guys, anybody that you know from the states, share these clips out so we can spread the news that voting is going to be important in a lot of states this year to legalize psychedelics, marijuana, medical marijuana. There's all sorts of things on the ballot.
Withdrawal from a failed war in Afghanistan.
Oh, Jesus. I saved this like This is from a while ago, and I saved this probably a couple weeks ago when I wanted to do the Weed Wednesdays. And yeah, this is Kennedy.
Heartless dismissal of cannabis research, the federal government continues to abandon its veterans. Veteran groups far and wide like...
That is true. We've completely, every single person I always show, they always have completely missed out on the cannabis for veterans. I don't know why, but Republicans always vote against that for some reason. They'll be okay with one or two things of cannabis, but they're never okay with cannabis for vets, which should be such a slam dunk of a bill for everybody.
The American Legion overwhelmingly endorse cannabis research so VA doctors can understand and legally prescribe marijuana to forgotten warriors who suffer from everything from PTSD to insomnia and chronic pain.
So basic, right? I mean, it's so basic.
2017, the National Academy of Medicine announced they poured over 10,000 research papers and abstracts and concluded there is clear evidence cannabis can treat chronic pain, MS symptoms, as well as nausea from chemo.
Wow, it's proven. Somebody on the right admitted it's proven, guys. Write it down. Put that down in your notes. That is a good day for us.
Yet the VA has decided there is no medical benefit to MJ, so why bother looking into it? The VA and DOJ were hand-in-hand recoiling from any meaningful research because the plants is a Schedule I substance that has no medical benefit.
Again, Schedule I thing can be reversed by a signature from the president. That's all it takes. One signature from the president and Schedule I can go down. That can be taken care of by any president we have. Doesn't have to be anybody left, right. Taken care of like that.
Benefit. And they engage in circular logic. There hasn't been enough research, so we don't really know what's in there. But whatever's in there, it has no value. As well as confirmation bias, only finding studies that search for the harmful effects of marijuana and not the pain-thwarting, life-saving benefits many veterans need desperately. And this is the most unshocking side effect from President Biden's administration. He was, after all, the one who authored and shepherded the 1994 crime bill that dictated mandatory minimums for marijuana offenses. And despite claims he's evolved on weed, he still calls it a gateway drug. Well,
this administration was an absolute lose for us. Jesus. Absolute lose, guys. This administration is not pro-marijuana in any way, shape, or form.
Lawmakers from his own party are fighting his administration and various agencies to finally move on some aspect of rescheduling or legalizing or meaningfully decriminalizing cannabis once and for all. California Democrat Congressman Lou Correa wrote a 2019 bill telling the VA to please study cannabis for PTSD. But he's getting stonewalled by the agency, as though Jefferson Beauregard Sessions was still the nation's top cop.
Well, it's really hard to listen to this from the right, but, you know, again, everybody can be right at something. Everybody's right on some issues. And she's, mockingly right on this, guys.
While the feds drag their heels, vets are forced to settle for opioids and antidepressants, as those suffering most tend to self-medicate. It's a shame the federal government has let it come to this when there are a number of bills, and there could be executive orders that would easily ease their suffering. Instead, they're ignored by a bunch of fussy old drug warriors, while the real warriors are taking their own lives to the tune of 18 a day. The President and Congress have the power to stop the suffering, but they're drunk on their own power, which is the deadliest gateway drug of all.
But now money's, like I've shown before, money's moving into this topic. And so more and more people will cave to this issue. It'll keep pushing that way as money moves into it further and further.
And that's the
proving again that money is the only thing that actually moves any issues at all.
Republicans and Democrats are waving the green flag for pot, from bills for vets to widespread legalization. The legislation is out there. But will it ever make it to President Biden's desk? And would he even sign it? The party panel is back.
Yeah, I'm not listening to a panel on Fox about this, but the facts are there. You know, the VAs have tried to, the VAs are blocking it up. Congress is blocking up, and most of my ballot discussion, guys, is state and House measures blocking things and holding things up. So today I wanted to go over Tennessee, one of the states I plan on possibly moving to in the future. So I wanted to go over its medical marijuana policies. Tennessee is one of only 13 states that has not authorized medical cannabis, but lawmakers made unprecedented progress on the issue in 2021, sponsored by Senator Janice Bowling. SB 854 would have legalized medical cannabis for qualifying patients and established a medical cannabis commission to regulate production and sales. On March 2nd of 2021, the Senate Government Operations Committee approved SB 854. Sadly, the bill was rejected by the Senate Judiciary Committee on March 23rd, 6-2. So it approved one committee, but then rejected by another committee, proving a handful of people have more power than the actual constituents, actual voters. The advocates are going to make another pass to make this cannabis legislation in 2022. 81% of voters support allowing patients and doctors to decide whether to use medical cannabis. If you live in Tennessee, send an email to state legislators urging them to support medical cannabis. You can also ask them to decriminalize or just legalize it. And that's always, Tennessee is also one of 19 states that still penalize simple possession of cannabis with jail time. Possession of half ounce or less is punishable by nearly a year of incarceration. While Tennessee voters overwhelmingly support both medical cannabis and legalization, Tennessee doesn't have a voter initiative process. Only elected officials have the power to change state law. And these guys are holding it up. You can't even sign an initiative to force it on the ballot. You have to wait for legislation. And that means it is in their hands. You need to vote in better state representatives, guys. So that's, I guess, what we can do in Tennessee. Nothing there, nothing there. There was a clip I wanted to show from a local news. Should work. It might work.
Make weed legal in Tennessee this year, not just medicinally, but recreationally. If that were to happen, Tennessee would join a growing list of...
Yeah, it's 36 states that are currently medical, with one currently working. You alone, man. You alone. Yeah, 17 states completely recreational at the moment.
States around the country with legal recreational marijuana might be the first southern state to make the move. But it will be a tough time to make it through the legislature, where a number of medical cannabis bills have failed through the last decade. As News Channel 5's Kyle Horan shows us, this national representative wants to start a conversation about the direction of legalization nationwide.
In some of these states, nationwide change seems more reasonable than actual state-by-state change. That's so funny. And it's usually places that have high rural populace.
Thinking here from this state lawmaker is that in the future there are going to be multiple states around Tennessee that have full recreational legalization of cannabis. He says Tennessee should fall in line with that.
This won't be an easy one. Medical cannabis has been a hot topic in the state legislature, but recreational? There hasn't been much discussion about that.
You look across the state line in Bristol. Bristol's going to have full legalization, so you'll be able to step over the state line. Mississippi is working through their process. We don't need to be the last state standing.
Representative Bob Freeman is bringing a bill to legalize the cultivation, regulation, and sale of cannabis across Tennessee without the current restrictions facing hemp farmers. Cannabis has been discussed in committees before, and law enforcement have voiced their concerns about the possibility of abuse, even with products for medical use. Freeman says these talks need to happen because other states are passing legalization laws. Freeman believes that people of Tennessee should have their voices heard on this issue.
Part of that process is going to be debating and having people hear from qualified individuals as to why this should happen, talk about the tax revenue that our state could be receiving, and talk about the number of people that are in prison today for small amounts of marijuana.
A recent Gallup poll shows support for legalization increasing to 68% nationwide. Also, other states have seen tax revenue numbering in the billions because of cannabis.
Again, Tennessee itself has 71% thinks that medical should be legal. Medical marijuana should be legal in their state, 71%, but yet Tennessee will not hold that up or move anything forward. That's insane that state legislation has that much power.
Sales. Colorado is an example. Their Department of Revenue shows the state has made more than $2 billion since they started taxing the plant in 2014. Still, there are many voices who will want to be heard on this issue in Tennessee. Kyle Horan, News Channel 5.
All right, so yeah, local news is the only way to go, guys. Yeah, just absolutely insane. And that's a state, like I said, I'm considering moving to, but they are well behind the times. And maybe this election would get more people to move. Gatlinburg, Knoxville, Nashville, these are all growing towns, but without medical marijuana, it's not an ideal place for people like me to move. Like we love the mountains, we love the distilleries, the breweries, the atmosphere, but it's gotta you guys gotta catch up with the rest of the country. I did want to also read over Rhode Island. I could not find any worthwhile clips, I believe. Not that one. So yeah, Rhode Island. So for their medical marijuana, they approved it in 2018, and a deal with marijuana legalization bill in Rhode Island appears imminent, with key lawmakers recently saying that legislation should be introduced in the coming days following months of negotiation between the House, Senate, and Governor's office. The Senate already passed legalization legislation last year. This is another state in the tipping point. The reason I want to go over this is because basically your entire West Coast and now your entire Northeast is going to be recreational legal. And that's huge, guys. That's people who want to travel, who want to live that van life, they got to go to places that have recreational legal. We don't want to be crossing state lines with stuff that's still, with the feds still being illegal. You can't cross state lines with the freaking, from one legal state to another legal state. That's still somehow illegal. So van lifers, travelers, these people who are well off and are constantly just traveling anyway, they want to go to states that it's legal. And Rhode Island being one of the last tipping points here in the Northeast. Many issuers have resolved over the course of negotiations, but the question of who should be in charge of regulating the program, an existing agency or a newly created body, has been the sticking point. The House and Senate intend to soon have a draft of legislation ready, which will serve as the framework to begin a robust public hearing process. The Speaker, Joseph Shirkarchi, he's a Democrat. We may not be the first state to legalize marijuana, but our goal is to do it in a way that is best for all Rhode Islanders. When you think about legalizing marijuana, think about all Americans, because it's not going to be just Rhode Islanders that's going to contribute to your tax dollars if you legalize. Legalization is only going to improve your tourism. Again, people want to be moving around right now. Washington State also had, I couldn't find any clips or anything else, but Marijuana Movement did have an article on Washington State. And since I know quite a few people out west, their changes are a little bit something different. Activists are preparing to introduce a ballot initiative to broadly decriminalize drugs in 2022, similar to what neighboring Oregon voters passed in 2020. Decriminalization of all drugs, meaning if you get popped for something, you're going to a rehab and not to jail for having a substance issue. Christina, if dealing will still be illegal in certain large drugs. Christina Blocker of Commit to Change Washington told Marijuana Movement that the campaign is energized by the support that we have received across the country, across the state of Washington, adding that 2022 is the year where we will have the opportunity to end the war on drugs and its impact on our families, our neighbors, and our communities. The group was formerly known as Treatment First Washington, and in 2020 attempts to qualify a decriminalization measure for that year's state ballot. The initiative would have made unlawful possession of any drug a civil infraction, referred people found with drugs to a services assessment, and funded a massive expansion of outreach and recovery programs. Because that is what we need. Recovery programs, not jail cells. That's what all these people need. They need recovery programs. When the pandemic interrupted the signature gathering effort for the measure, organizers shifted their focus to the legislature. After months of delay, a bill that was largely based on the earlier initiative was introduced, but eventually died after clearing one House committee. Everything dies in committee, guys. We have to actually get it on our votes. Committees won't do anything. State lawmakers did reduce Washington's criminal penalty for drug possession from a felony to a misdemeanor last year, and that was in response to a state Supreme Court invalidating the decades-old felony law, which temporarily left no valid law on the books against simple possession, which more progressive Democrats urged against reinstating criminal penalties of any kind. The legislation ultimately adopted the misdemeanor charge along with plans to create a statewide suite of treatment and recovery services. The law, widely seen by advocates as a half step toward a meaningful reform, took effect in May with Governor Jay Inslee's signature. Separately, a pair of lawmakers recently introduced legislation that would legalize what the bill calls supported psychobin experiences by adults 21 or older. That's another thing. There's a lot of places across the country this year that have recreational marijuana and now are making magic mushrooms legal. California, and I know there's a hand like Detroit and Grand Rapids in Michigan, but some of the places that have taken that step to legalize recreational marijuana are now moving into psychedelics. So we are moving forward, we are progressing, and that is, yeah. We're moving in the right direction, a lot of this, guys. It's good stuff. I wanted, you know, this is a way that we can move. If you talk about finances, how you can move certain people into the cannabis world.
Go of it this year, and there are still many challenges heading into the new year, despite another potential year of rises for that sector. Frank Holland joins us with the playbook for 2022.
Hey, good morning, Walt. Well, the legal U.S. cannabis market is forecast to grow to $31 billion in 2022.
So any right-wingers, there you go. Make cannabis legal. We'll have $1 billion per state forecast, probably. Something like that. $1 billion per year. That's cannabis. That's taking stuff off the black market, making it taxable, making it on a revenue stream, making people admit to paying for it. And I don't know. There's, you know.
Sales are expected to grow 28%. Questions about the timeline for federal legalization. Those are also growing. A reform bill passed by the House has yet to go to a vote in the Senate. Analysts say the difficulties in passing the Build Back Better bill are a headwind for cannabis. But Stiefel believes the Safe Banking Act that allows banks to do business with legit cannabis companies has a good chance of passing in 2022. A major trend to watch, THC beverages, cannabis beverages. They only make up about 1% of the U.S. market, less than 2% in Canada, but they're much higher margin.
That would be, I know that the dispensaries down here started doing like powdered drinks and stuff, but oh man, if they have cocktails and they make it legal for me to sell a cocktail at a bar with marijuana in it, we're going to have a whole new group of people coming into bars getting intoxicated. And they're not going to be rowdy, but, you know, they'll be spending money. Again, good for capitalism.
It's estimated about a dime worth of cannabis goes into a cannabis beverage, but they can then retail for $3 to $5. Constellation Brands, most of course, Heineken. They already have investments or partnerships with Canadian cannabis companies, something to watch on your store shelves in the future. And there are a lot of questions about how supply chain will impact cannabis. U.S. prices have fallen 15% year over year, Canadian prices even more, while warehousing, growth facility, and trucking rates remain at all-time highs. But the real wildcard for cannabis next year is the New York City market fully opening, estimated to be over $4 billion. What cannabis companies do to compete with the illegal market that has a very developed supply chain, delivery system, and a very broad selection that will all be watched and modeled, not only around the country, but possibly around the world.
You're wondering if factory cannabis can keep up with black market cannabis on variety. Oh man, this guy has never been into a dispensary ever. take a minute, dude. Go down to a dispensary in like Colorado and California and Michigan. Go to an actual dispensary, dude. It's like a fucking Apple store with pot, man. It's crazy, dude. You're an idiot. Obviously, he's never been to a place because absolutely intense amount of cannabis in these places, man. That's ridiculous. All right, I wanted to. I have this saved for some reason, so my C-SPAN moment of the day, I guess. We still have a White House later, but let's do C-SPAN. I haven't done them in a while, and I want to see what this crazy lady says. Ooh.
You've heard me say again and again that the Republicans seem to be having a limbo contest with themselves to see how low they can go. They seem to have reached rock bottom with their statement that what happened on January 6th was normal political discourse. Legitimate political discourse. I've also said that Republican Party, which country needs a strong Republican Party. They've made great contributions to our country. I say this to Republicans all the time. Take back your party from this cult. Take back your party. America needs a strong Republican Party and a strong Democratic Party. But it has.
But we have neither. So that's where we're at. That's stupid. We have neither. You're an idiot. Dumb.
Been hijacked, and it's disturbing to see that the Republican leader of the House actually literally refused to condemn that resolution of legitimate political discourse. He literally ran away from the press when he was asked about his position. The Republicans can run, but they cannot hide from what happened on January 6th to call that legitimate political discourse. 140 law enforcement officers were wounded. Some people died. It was an assault on our Capitol, our Congress, more importantly, assault on our democracy. They can run, but they can't hide. With that, please take any questions you may.
Oh, God. So that made me a little nauseous. That's fun. All right. So I'm going to try something off the phone. Let me know if you can hear it, please. But I want to do something from NPR. Oh, you don't do that. And so I have it on my Spotify. We're going to use Spotify for this channel, but we're going to just do the volume here. So you'll have to look at my stupid face for a minute while we hopefully listen to this. And if I did it on the screen, they would take me down in a minute. All right. Let me know if you can hear this, please.
There are millions of books out there just waiting for you. But how to keep up? Introducing NPR's Book of the Day.
Which I'm a Florida state employee, and cumulatively for 25 years, the cost of living this year is increased more than all of the cost of living increases I've ever received combined. If anything changes, I'm just going to be homeless. I can't even apply for rent, as most people would like 3 times the income of the rent, and I make nowhere near that.
Today we're talking about something that'll resonate with a lot of you.
Rent. It's too damn high.
That was New York politician Jimmy McMillan in 2010, but its words are just as accurate today. New York City holds the top spot for rental costs. It passed San Francisco last year. The median rent for a 1-bedroom in New York is just...
So again, yeah, this is NPR. Let me know if you can hear it, please. Shows I have no viewers. But this is NPR. It was the most recent one. I listened to it on my way to the dentist today. My whole face is still numb, guys. That's why I'm kind of weird looking today. But this is why is rent so damn high? Maybe I was a little drugged up on the way home, and maybe I wasn't listening to it right, but I got very mad. And I'm going to do the same thing here. So this should be a fun clip. It should definitely be clippable clip. And instead of listening to NPR ask you for money or advertise, billionaire foundations, you get to hear me rant It's the same good old thing. So here's NPR.
Over $3,200 while you're looking at about $2,800 in San Francisco. But when it comes to whose rent is rising fastest, Austin, Texas is on top. Austin's rental rates for new leases rose 40% over the last year, according to Redfin's rental market tracker. Rents across the country are increasing. According to online apartment rental site Zumper, the median rent for a one-bedroom increased about 12% in 2021 and is now at an all-time high. So why are rents rising now? And what can tenants, landlords, and policymakers do about it? We'll discuss all that and more after the break. I'm Jen White. You're listening to the 1A podcast, where we get to the heart of the story. Remember to join future conversations. Download our 1A Vox Pop app and leave us a voicemail.
Even their podcast is going to make me listen to crap like this, I guess, huh?
Support for NPR and the following message come from BetterHelp, offering up and how healing it can be to have a healthy relationship with someone. To get matched with a counselor within 48 hours and save 10%, go to BetterHelp.com. It can be as simple as brewing yourself a 3-month. And to celebrate, NPR's Book of the Day podcast.
The world's been through a lot. So,
all right, again, can you guys all hear this? I want to make sure I don't get taken down today, so I'm doing NPR from the phone.
In this season of the StoryCorps podcast, we'll hear stories reminding us that even when times are hard, we can still begin again. Listen to our new season wherever you get your podcasts.
Let's get back to discussing high rents and affordable housing. Joining us from Washington, D.C. is Jenny Schutz. She's a senior fellow with the Metropolitan Policy Program at the Brookings Institution. She's also the author of the new book, Fixer Upper, How to Repair America's Broken Housing Systems. Jenny, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
And joining us from Milwaukee, Wisconsin is Daryl Fairweather. She's a chief economist at Redfin. Daryl, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, Jenny, we talked about New York and Austin just a moment ago, but rising rental costs are hitting people hard across the country. Jenny, why are we seeing rents rising so much right now?
What we're really seeing is the collision of both the supply and demand side of housing markets, driving up rents, driving up housing prices. So on the demand side, we have two historically large generations, the millennials and the baby boomers. It's just a lot of bodies, a lot of people who need places.
First of all, just gonna straight up bullshit. Oh, this segment gets me very upset, guys. There's plenty of housing. If you have lived in any city anywhere, I've lived in like a handful of cities in the last 10 years, like literally like 7 cities in the last 10 years, and there's never the housing issues. There's always empty housing. They literally there's like 6 companies that own all the housing across this freaking country. You don't think there's monopoly on housing? Okay, so there's empty housing right now, guys. There's literally more than 2 empty houses for every homeless person, and they leave them empty strategically. So this whole premise is just bullshit from NPR, okay? I don't know who funded this fucking segment, but it's bullshit. I'm going to try to let it play for a little bit, but everything she says is bullshit.
To live. Coming out of the recession, we've had very strong growth in income for a lot of households, very strong job market. Those things tend to push up rents because there are just a lot of people who need apartments and are willing and able to pay for it. On the supply side, we've been underbuilding housing for a decade nationally.
They're going to keep doing this, decade, 30 years, 50 years, if you really want to look at it. We've just not been building. What are you talking about? Like, they're constructing everywhere I've ever lived. They're constantly constructing. But the thing is that changed is that these places are going from Airbnb. They used to be single family homes. They used to be, rental, multi-unit rentals. And now they're turning into Airbnbs and to weekend condos. And it's all going to the top 20%. It's all going to these 12 million people in this freaking country have more than 3 houses. More than 12 million, so it's 12 million that have 3 houses. I think it's more than 10 million non-Americans own vacation homes here. There's plenty of housing in this place. We give it away to elite rich all over the planet, and they're talking about supply and demand.
Ever since the Great Recession, new construction of homes has not kept up with the growth in population and jobs, so we don't have enough homes to go around.
Nope.
And in places like Austin and San Francisco and New York, the places with some of the strongest job markets, we've actually been underbuilding housing for more like 30 years. So we have this huge deficit of homes.
A lot of those places don't have anywhere else to put new places. It's about keeping stable prices on lower income homes, because what's more affordable or what's more profitable, a Airbnb that's small but really fancy, or a cheap home, a cheap apartment? And what's more profitable for these massive corporations that bought them up? Because when it was a family owning places, if a family owned a building, they might have it as a rentals. But now when corporations own it, they have them as timeshares, they have them as Airbnbs and weekend, getaways. And you can make more off of 3 days of a weekend getaway twice a month than you can off of a poor family. That's what it's about.
At a time when we need more homes and more people are looking for places to live.
Now, Daryl, you've been tracking rents at Redfin. What has the data shown you?
We're seeing that leases, new rents are up 14% from last year, and this is a big change from last year when rents were only up 3%.
And I don't know where they're getting these 3% either. Like, everywhere, everybody I talk to, okay, I'm going to do this right here. The local, I was talking to somebody who in a 10-year period saw their rent go from 500 to 1,000. That's not a 3% once in a while raise. 500 to 1,000 over 10 years. That's double in 10 years. His income hasn't doubled in 10 years. Now in the last 2 years, it's gone from 1,000 up to 1,350. Another 350 in 2 years. So that's what we're looking at. In Charlotte, I saw the same thing. In Phoenix, I saw the same thing. Maybe in major cities, it hasn't increased as much because they're so overcost already. But side cities, I've tried to move to other places. I've looked into moving to other places. The rents are increasing so dramatically for middle and lower income families that it's becoming unlivable. And that's why you're seeing crime increase. That's why you're seeing these issues. But they're trying to pretend like it's just not enough housing. No, we can't afford to live anywhere. That's why people are living in their cars. That's why they estimate 2 million people are currently living in cars, not because they want to live that van life, because they actually have to live in their car. And then that's not including the 600,000 people that are actually homeless right now. Again, we have 2 homes for every one of those people. Empty, not being used. Not a vacation home, just empty. That's where we're at. So this is such an elitist bubble fucking way of looking at it.
During the pandemic, people were pretty much staying in place, especially with the eviction moratorium. And now all of a sudden, everybody is out looking for a new place to live, maybe a new neighborhood or a new city, or looking to move out from roommates or their parents' house. And all that extra demand is driving up prices.
And what else do you think is causing rents to rise? You were talking about people shifting to new housing, a lack of housing stock. Anything else that comes to mind?
Well, there's
anything that I mentioned. And by the way, I was screaming this in the car in Florida traffic, which is like Tampa Bay, just bumper to bumper everywhere. And I was screaming this in the car with my face numb and just pain. And yeah, there's still
extra money flowing around in the economy because people didn't have much to spend.
Extra money flowing around in the economy because we didn't have a thing to spend it on. That's what she says. Elitist bubble, maybe?
On during the pandemic, they couldn't go on vacation, they couldn't go out to eat. But where you
so many people have been going on vacation, going out to eat the last 2 years. She's a New York elitist, I'm gonna guess. I'm just gonna put my money on a New York elitist. That's my guess. Yeah.
Is very important to people, especially since we've all been stuck at home for so long. So I think people are especially now looking for...
Yeah, it's like, is that the only place that's stuck at home is like maybe LA and New York or San Francisco and New York? Because most of the country's been open for quite a while. Maybe locked down for a few weeks here and there.
Or a new place to live, maybe with more space, maybe more space for themselves, and that extra demand is driving up rents.
Jenny, how are different regions and...
That demand is driving the rents up. I'm not going to do much more of this segment, guys. I freaking went livid in the car, and it's a 32-minute segment, and obviously on NPR that's going to take a whole hour because how many times they got to ask you for money, even though NPR. All right, I'm going to wait on that for a second. All right, let's just.
Different income groups being affected by the increase.
One of the really unusual things about this round of housing market is that we're seeing strong demand in an awful lot of places. It's not just the biggest coastal cities that are seeing high increases. In fact, a lot of the increases are kind of the somewhat smaller Sunbelt cities. So
seriously, they're not going to say one word about Airbnb. Like, there's cities in this state, in this country, that have had to stop allowing new Airbnbs in town because so many of them have been bought out that residents are getting pushed out of cities because so many houses are turning into these weekend rentals. Not going to mention
like
it.
Denver and Nashville, Salt Lake City have been particularly strong.
All of those cities are those Airbnb cities. Nashville, Salt Lake City. These are Colorado, Denver. Like, these are places that people are going on vacation. These are places that massive corporations are buying up Airbnbs, turning them into massive profit centers, and then holding off their hedge funds for a little while so that way they can keep doing what they're doing, because the Ponzi scheme of Wall Street is bullshit and they need to be able to pay people off. So rents are a way that they can pay people off while they gamble on Ponzi schemes.
In part because people have been leaving New York and San Francisco and moving to places where they can work from home. So we're seeing a pretty broad-based geographic spread of rent increases. When it comes to income, there are sort of a couple of interesting trends going on. One of the fastest growing segments of renters is high-income households, people earning more than $75,000 or $100,000 per household, who typically would have been in the homeownership market.
Except for that massive corporations are buying houses at 20 to 30% above asking price instantly because they can, and they want to jack up prices. They want to own everything so they can control rent prices. And so people can't afford to buy houses that cash that fast. And so middle income housing is disappearing, and that is only going to increase rents down the future on purpose.
Because there's so few homes available for sale, many of those households are staying renters longer than they would have. That's driving the demand for new professionally managed high-end apartments. The people who are really getting stuck, of course, are the ones at the bottom of the income distribution. The poor.
Yay, she said it. She said it. Yay.
20% of households spend more than half of their income on rent. That leaves them less than $500 to spend on other necessities, which is just unsustainable for most households. They have the fewest choices. There aren't that many apartments at the low end. There's not nearly enough public subsidy to help them. So low-income renters are getting the worst end of the deal.
And that's literally the only part of their 30 minutes that they talk about that kind of issue. I think the most important issue they talk about for 30 seconds and then they gloss over. And yeah,
we did hear from some of you on the landlord side of this issue.
Hello, this is.
See, they went right from that to the landlord side of the issue, and no, just okay, all right. They literally went from the most important bit, which was like a 20-second bit. They went from the most important thing for this 32-minute and 17-second segment. They gloss over that and they go right to the landlords.
Renee from Roanoke, Virginia. I'm an investor from France. We own a number.
Investor from France.
Properties, residential, multifamily, and commercial.
They own all sorts of properties. So we need to hear this rich ass.
The reason we're going to increase rents is because of the cost of maintenance. We're seeing a dramatic increase in the past year in labor costs as well as material costs.
Can we ask how much his profits are per year? Can we ask if they're still making record profits or possibly, 1,000% profits, or what kind of profits are they making that they maintenance costs? Oh, it's lumber and labor that. Oh, I'm sure that all their laborers now have health insurance, huh? I'm sure all their laborers are. I'm sure there's a correlation between the 20% raises and the 40% increases that they're doing. I'm sure there's a correlation. I promise you. Why did we go right from the poor issue right to the landlords?
You can find any material, and we're going to have to pass on a portion of those through rent increases to our tenants.
My name's Franco from Cleveland. I'm a landlord. Responding to your prompt asking us for information about rental rates. We've been landlords for a long time in my family, and we try very hard to provide low rents as low as possible.
In Cleveland, his family has done it for a long time, so that's it's a rough life having to be owning a bunch of homes and taking a lot of time off and having to do a little bit of maintenance or hire some maintenance people. It's a rough life, man. I'm feeling for you already. You really got me on your side.
To regular people, it's good for our business to avoid turnover, and it's good for them to have cheaper rents. But it's becoming impossible not to raise rents. I haven't had to do it yet, but I'm losing money, and that's because of the cost of water.
When he says losing money, he's losing his expected profits. That's what he's saying. He's not saying he's losing money out of pocket. He's saying he's losing expected profits. And I can't believe that they went right from the most important issue right into landlords, and then they're just going to keep on talking to these New York bubbleists that have no clue. And that's what you get from NPR. That's what you get from NPR. You're going to get a bunch of corporate bubbleists. They have no concept of anything. And I just wanted to do my my rant of the day. It's 4:20 somewhere. No, it's not. It's 9:05. So we got 15 minutes to 4:20 in Hawaii. And for that, I'm going to go ahead and start my rant. News ownership, guys. NPR is basically, I was asked this question today, so I'm going to rant on it. NPR is funded by the Koch brothers, by Microsoft, and Bill Gates. So that's who you are listening to. Yeah, they have some public funding. Yeah, they get some money from people just like you. But yeah, Koch brother, the Koch Foundation and the Bill Gates Foundation, very much public NPR. So they are oil. They are big tech. They are not small and for the people. And then just look at some of the ownership of all of our media. Foundation and the Bill Gates Foundation. All right, get my phone back here. Yeah, CNN. They're still owned by Time Warner. That's not a neutral party at all. Massive corporation. MSNBC. They're still Comcast. That was Microsoft, and now it's Comcast. So that's the type of people you're listening to with mainstream media. And then, of course, Fox is a Aussie billionaire and a Saudi prince. So if you think you're getting American news from an Aussie billionaire and a Saudi prince, man, my side of the face is not working yet. But yeah, that's not fantastic. That is not who you think. I wouldn't call that unbiased, good American news. But that's who some people are quoting. That's who some people count on for their daily news, and that's what we're to do to take it down, guys. Got to get rid of disinformation, which is mainstream media, all mainstream media. Well, let's move on to the second half of the day. Not going to start there. I wanted to check out this rant from Nico.
We're not going to do. We're not going to take the Canadian trucker issue, the freedom convoy, if you will, and make it a black or a race issue when it has had nothing to do with race, nor have the people condemning everybody in that movement as white supremacists actually cared about race when it mattered most. Those primarily calling this convoy a white supremacist operation didn't seem to care all that much. Whenever we told y'all the mandates primarily affected black people. In fact, we then started calling the black people the Nazis. Remember? The liberals in America didn't seem to care all that much about.
Gotta check out a rant from Nico every once in a while. I can't watch the whole 3.5 hours every day. But they do a lot of live streams in the middle of the day, so it's always a good one to, if you see him during the middle of the day, if you are a bartender, a SToney server or whatever like me, he's usually streaming noon to Eastern. My day-to-day is going to be usually I try to catch the White House briefing in the morning. I might wake up to Jamarl Thomas, then go to Tom Hartman, try to catch her, and then anybody else, any live protest or anybody else live streaming during the day before I go to the bar. So let's catch out her. There wasn't anything too amazing from the day, but I got to pack a fresh bowl. So we are going to check out Jen Psaki for a minute.
HHS just put out a statement clarifying around some of the reports that crack pipes are not one part of the safe smoking kits that are funded by the administration. But can you clarify for us, were they never a part of the kit, or were they removed in response to this reporting and this pushback?
They were never part of the kit. It was inaccurate reporting, and we wanted to put out information to make that clear.
What is in the safe smoking kit?
A safe smoking kit may contain alcohol swabs, lip balm, other materials to promote hygiene and reduce the transmission of diseases like HIV and hepatitis. I would note that what we're really talking about here is steps that we're taking as a federal government to address the opioid epidemic, which is killing tens of thousands, if not more, Americans every single day, week, month of the year. We put out this statement, though, because there was inaccurate information out there, or I should say HHS put out the statement because there was inaccurate information out there, and we wanted to provide clarification on the allowable.
Fox has to hire some really interesting people to have them go up and ask, did you send crack pipes out to people? They actually asked that. That was maybe my favorite moment of today. Like, I'm going to go to the end and show another, but that's something special right there. When you can ask Jen Psaki if she sent crack pipes out to America. That's great. I love it.
Uses for the HHS harm reduction program. It's not a change in policy. This program, though, is focused on harm reduction strategies, including prioritizing the use of fentanyl test strips and clean syringes. And all of these harm reduction services that will be supported by these programs are intended to save lives from an epidemic that we know is devastating to communities across the country.
And then, so just to put a final point on it, does the administration support any effort to distribute drug paraphernalia?
The statement makes clear that we don't support federal funding, indirect or direct, for pipes.
And then on the safe injection sites that the DOJ is evaluating, was this an ask from the White House that they review that policy? Because I know that for years DOJ has opposed efforts to open safe injection sites.
It's under litigation, so I can't speak to that. But what I can tell you and reiterate is that the White House is committed, as I would reiterate for you, many Democrats and Republicans, including Senator Cruz, to taking steps to address the opioid crisis. This is not an issue that is inflicting just blue states. It is inflicting millions of Americans across the country, and it is important that we take steps to address it.
So just final wrap those two items. What would you say to critics who are concerned that the Biden administration is somehow encouraging illegal drug use?
I think that it's important to step back and remember, just to put a little more of a fine point on it, that we're losing an American life every 5 minutes to overdose. We don't have time for political games. The president's focused on saving lives through harm reduction programs. That's exactly what we're talking about here. They work in red states and they work in blue states. We know they save lives. They help connect people to treatment and recovery. And they were endorsed this week by a bipartisan commission co-chaired by Senator Tom Cotton that examines steps we must take to address the devastating toll of overdoses. So what I would say is this is not a game. This is not a political game. This is an epidemic that is taking the life of 5.
I hear his DMX in my head, so just bow, bow.
Of an American every 5 minutes, and we need to work in a bipartisan way to address it.
Thank you. Can I ask a little quick about the masks?
Their face. Can we do that again? Let's make it big. This is not a game, and just we're gonna do that whole thing again because that's all we're gonna do for Jen today. That was a fantastic response. We're going to do a big screen and see if I get taken down for it.
Inflicting just blue states. It is inflicting millions of Americans across the country, and it is important that we take steps to address it.
So just final wrap those two items. What would you say to critics who are concerned that the Biden administration is somehow encouraging illegal drug use?
I think that it's important to step back and remember, just to put a little more of a fine point on it, that we're losing an American life every 5 minutes to overdose. We don't have time for political games. The president's focused on saving lives through harm reduction programs. That's exactly what we're talking about here. They work in red states and they work in blue states. We know they save lives. They help connect people to treatment and recovery. And they were endorsed this week by a bipartisan commission co-chaired by Senator Tom Cotton that examines steps we must take to address the devastating toll of overdoses. So what I would say is this is not a game. This is not a political game. This is an epidemic that is taking the life of an American every 5 minutes, and we need to.
It is a serious subject, but just the way Fox News has the balls to are you giving crack pipes to people? I mean, just so we're so sure, you're not. This administration is not trying to make everybody smoking crack, right? Like, come on, lady. This is not. Dude.
Work in a bipartisan way to address it.
Can I ask a real quick about the masks? We had another state today dropping their mask mandate as CDC is confirming that their guidance is not changing. But these decisions that are being made at the local level, like you guys always talk about, are out of step with the science that is at the forefront of the CDC, of this White House. So why are we not hearing the same messaging criticizing states that are, making these moves like we've heard previously with, for instance, Ron DeSantis?
Well, I would say there is a distinct difference between standing in the way, which
for instance, Ron DeSantis. Gotta love Fox News. They're not trying to plan any names in the news,
DeSantis did, or Governor DeSantis, I'll give him his full title, of teachers, school administrators, and others taking steps to protect the students and their school communities. There's a difference between standing in the way of it, threatening to pull back funding, and allowing for local school districts to make choices, which is what a number of these states are doing. Go ahead.
Just quick follow-up on that. Does the administration risk being out of touch with where the country is heading in terms of lifting these mask mandates if the CDC doesn't revise its guidance?
Well, again, we understand where the emotions of the country are, right? People are tired of masks. I would say not even if you look at the polling, though.
Again, just for the YouTube algorithm, I'm not saying any of this. This is from the White House press briefing. This is national.
There is also a huge chunk of people who still want masks, right? So it's not even that specific. It's just that, as you noted, there are some states that are moving towards rolling back or giving more choice to local communities about how they will implement these requirements. But again, from the federal government, what our responsibility to do is to abide by what the president committed to on the campaign, which is to listen to scientists, listen to data. That doesn't move at the speed of politics, it moves at the speed of data. And they, Dr. Walensky committed to convey, or I should say confirmed, that they were evaluating this at the CDC.
And I want to just ask you about Russia. You were very careful in your wording when you were asked yesterday the extent to which the administration understands what happened between President Macron and President Putin. Can you give us any more information today? To what extent has the administration been briefed? Has the president been briefed directly on this talk?
The president Macron this morning, which I believe we confirmed. Yes.
And what does he understand about what came out of that meeting? Does he have the same sense of optimism?
I just want to do the face covering subject of the from smoking crack pipes to face coverings of the press briefing today. I thought it was fantastic. I know I have a warped sense of humor, and hopefully that's why you're joining me and sharing little SToney news humor. All right, but let's do our political takedown, guys. This was another of those CIA Democrats from the Wall Street Journal article I got. Max Rose, CIA Democrat. He is running for election of New York's 11th district. He was a member of the U.S. House, representing the 11th district on 2019, but he lost his last election and now is running for re-election again. That's why he's basically an incumbent, so we're going to look at him. So Rose said he would work to increase healthcare access in response to coronavirus, securing funding to address opioid addiction and preserve toll discounts. That's what he is claiming hanging his hat on for his last 2 years, that 2019-2020, which we all know, opioid addiction really taken care of very well. We just talked about that, so that's really well taken care of. Coronavirus is pretty much done, so I'm glad. He wasn't even there. It didn't healthcare access. He wasn't in during coronavirus. All right. Rose said his experience in serving in the military informed his outlook on a bipartisan legislator. He worked in military intelligence, so yeah, he knows bipartisan because every war is bipartisan. All right, great for him. Rose said Nicole Malatukas, the Republican, was dishonest. He said she changed policy positions during her 2020 campaign and said she did not serve her constituents' interests during the coronavirus response. So he's saying that she didn't do well with coronavirus through the last 2 years, so that's why he's running again. And he wasn't heavily primaried his last time. I don't see. Yeah, I don't see. Is it just straight? Maybe I should look into that better. Just a general election, no primary. Okay, so it's an open general election with 3 Democrats and 2 Republicans? That can't be. All right, well, I should have looked into it earlier. Sorry, guys. Like I said, I am currently on meds, but what I'm always interested in, the only thing I actually care about, is what they're worth, what their area is. So he's got a few houses. He's got $750,000 in rental properties. And I'm not going to open up his personal accounts or anything like that, but so he's said to be worth about $1 million. That's not massive, and it's just enough that you can't really say that he's hiding money. But when you look at it, he's only had a couple campaigns, and this is a massive amount, $13,886,000, and he spent all of it in a couple campaigns, only a couple campaigns. And again, usually, I mean, he lost his campaign, so he's in a contentious area. But maybe $4 million an election would be plenty, and he is well above that right now. He's looking at closer to $6 million. So he's outspending what you should. Omicron Group, again, that's a massive corporation. The city of New York is giving him money. That's always good. End Citizens United, again. This is a bullshit End Citizens United PAC. They actually give money to people who are not doing anything to stop Citizens United. Oh. So they are not for us. They are not on our side. And it's always people who are trying to stop Citizens United from being a thing that they give to, it seems like. And Weiss. Why does that sound familiar? But Ameripat, Goldman Sachs, Alphabet Inc., Meta, Facebook. So Facebook changed their name already on their donations. Pro-Israel PAC. Oh, and a handful of Goldman Sachs, PACs, Israel, all the usual suspects. And that is our CIA Dem, guys. That is just, money well spent. And I've never heard him speak. This is always a reactionary segment here, so let's hear what he has to say.
57% of Americans say they don't like the way Biden is handling the economy. Here's the Democratic quagmire. You've got the facts on your side, but the feeling isn't. How do you solve for that? Because people, they vote based on what they feel.
Well, first of all, let me say that if Steve threw his hat in the ring.
First of all, let me say that the facts are based on, who fucking cares? Inflation's through the roof. Shelves are empty. Incomes aren't going up. Most people's incomes aren't going up. Our benefits aren't getting better. We're getting fired. People are going on strike, working. What are you talking about? Because corporations' profits are better or something? You think that means the economy is better? Because what makes the economy better? What is your numbers based on? Because normal middle America and lower income America, you're talking bullshit.
I'd withdraw from the race immediately. But, first of all, when it comes to the Democrats, because the policies are on their side, but their messaging is not. They have to stop, in my humble opinion. And I say this as someone who's won a race and lost a race.
Humble opinion. Won a race, lost a race. I mean, I get very, very much money from it. I'm a millionaire. I'm just a humble man. Used to work for military intelligence. It's a humble thing.
So take it as you want. That they can't look down on people's pain. They can't dismiss inflation as transitory. Life, after all, is in theory transitory as well. So what we have to do is we have to tackle these things
head on, but we also cannot let the Republican Party off the hook. You know this, I know this. Any student of politics knows that the Republican Party behind closed doors is applauding inflation.
You have the same you have the same donors, man. You have the same, you're going to the same parties, you're meeting with the same rich people behind closed doors. So he's talking to us like he doesn't know it's a game, man. You're freaking military intelligence. You know this whole thing's a game. You've been in and out. You've talked to lobbyists. You decided to run again because your name's not big enough yet. Come on, man. No.
So opposite, the facts are on our side there.
And that was playing not too long. Can't go that long with the MSNBC clip. They knocked me out. All right. Well, let's see how far we can go with this. This is from Peter Joseph's channel, so usually he lets things play. I was going to end today's show with an old clip. I like going old school every once in a while. It's only from 4 years ago, but I don't remember this happening. So Peter Joseph and Jimmy Dore, full interview from April 2018. And I swear sometimes I hear Jimmy hear Peter Joseph's name. He's like, oh, that guy. And he's like, doesn't even remember doing this interview or something. I don't know, but I've never seen this. So it's going to be an old school clip that I can't believe I missed.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Jimmy Dore Show. We have a special guest with us, the founder of the Zeitgeist Movement and author of this new book, The New Human Rights Movement. It's Peter Joseph is with us. Say hello to Peter Joseph. Hi, Peter. Hey, how you doing, Jimmy? Now, first of all, I read this book. I'm not a good reader, so I probably missed a lot of stuff. It is a great book, and for me, what I took away from it, you really examine capitalism and the effects of capitalism on societies and people's psyches, and there were so many mind-blowing things in this book. I don't even know where to start, so let me just ask you, Peter, you could maybe tell people what this book is about and summarize it for us.
Oh, sure. So the New Human Rights Movement, the New Human Rights Movement, how dare I?
I guess I have to say that I am a fan of both of these people, which is why I can't believe I missed this interview. And it baffled me, but I found it across just constant searching of YouTube. I pull clips constantly, and I saved this one about a week or two ago, and I've been looking forward to watching it. I was going to do it on a Sunday interview, but I think it's worth. Peter Joseph and capitalism talk is very important right now. Like we're working towards a general strike. Everybody should be looking or hoping for some sort of strike that we actually move things to a workers-based, maybe an actual democracy where our vote counts on certain ballots. Maybe we actually get to vote nationwide ballots instead of having Congress, be taking money from corporations and then deciding. But I tangent. Let's go.
What is the old human rights movement? The focus being we have to take a kind of a broader sociological, structural view of society to think about all the interplays that produce human behavior, that produce our social systems, our institutions more so. Like what is fomented all this? How have we gotten here? And that is a public health debate. That is an issue of what defines public health, what defines actually, progress as we know it has to be defined in terms of actual health regards, not necessarily what we're producing in society, not how much productivity we have, or the extent of GDP, or how many people are employed, but how happy are we? And this is the core.
I just want to reiterate, this was taken off of the Zeitgeist Move TZM official channel, the Zeitgeist Movie official channel. That is my favorite documentary. That's really where I started to be a documentary binger and news binger. Was his documentary. Kind of changed my whole perspective. And this was done at Jimmy Dore's place on his channel, but this is posted off of Peter Joseph's channel.
Core of it is a public health treatment. And I put it in the context of human rights because I feel that when people realize that we have a structural problem, and when I use that word structural, I mean there's larger order of things that are happening that influence our behavior, just as there are biological things that influence our behavior. So structuralism, sociology, effectively it's an interdisciplinary kind of study, which means you have to take a lot into account to figure out what the hell is going on there. And that's really what this is about at its very core, is that approach. And what I conclude in the text is that with
this old economy that we have, you can call it market system, you can call it capitalism. I think of it more broadly, I say it's an economy run by market forces. That more gets to the point of it. Market forces embodies all the motivations people have. It generates the infrastructure, so to speak, the procedural dynamics, all the things we have to do to gain in this reality, to survive. And then you have all these people, suddenly 7 billion of us, pulling levers in a giant machine. And we're not paying attention to what this machine is actually doing. We're getting our little treats and we're throwing it in our mouth and our little stupid rewards. Capitals, they call it. We don't trust each other anymore. We have disparate groups that are going out of control. We have a whole new level of insurgencies and terrorism in the United States.
All right. Don't know how well this was going to go.
States, of course, is the forbidden example of all of this. I call it the forbidden experiment, I should say. Sort of like when you lock a kid in the closet and you don't look at them for 10 years, and they come out and they're all deranged with this kind of primalness. That's the way I see the United States experiment at this point, because look at the violence, look at everything that we're doing, look how weird the culture has become, look at the political system. It's become this amalgamation of so many things that, in my mind, is indicative of the worst outcomes, the most predictable yet worst peak outcomes of the kind of social system we have, the capitalist market force-driven system. So that, in combination with the ecological crisis, again, those levers that we're pulling on the machine. So let me just stop you at the market forces.
Sure.
Yeah. So, your critique is talking about that this quote-unquote free market system, first of all, isn't a free market system, that it's really manipulated by the people with the most money, which means they're the most powerful, that manipulate a free market into their favor. Correct? Would that be correct?
As would be expected.
So here's one differentiation that I want to make. So a lot of people say this debate, they bring up this debate, well, if we could only have a more robust free market, if we could stop the crony capitalism, if we could stop all of the apparent things that are anomalous, but they're not anomalous. They're part of the competitive gaming strategy of group versus group. And capitalism is the embodiment of that.
Sorry, playing it on fast forward will help me not possibly get stopped and knocked out of the stream, guys.
Primitive behavior coming from, again, eons of evolution of our most core and base instincts of keeping your tribalism together and not caring about the external. And it's that very problem that in our high-tech societies, again, flying us off of the cliff. So go back to your point. What we have in terms of the free market, everything you see around you, this is it. This is the free market. It's the free market that buys politicians just like you buy pizza. It's the free market that takes and gouges people in the medical community to get as much as it possibly can to extract for the self-interest of one group or corporation. It's the free market that lobbies, that does everything that you consider to be unethical, but within the game of competition, there really aren't any lines anymore. I mean, it just depends on what corner you're backed into. And so, why is it that some places institute a form of free markets or capitalism, say like Denmark, which they have a very strong social safety net, and they're now the happiest country in the world, I'm pretty sure, one of the top. Okay. And they have less income inequality than we have here. So why does it seem that our version of capitalism in the United States is so much more brutal than places like Denmark? First of all, I'm glad you bring that up, because that goes back to the Democratic socialist policies and Bernie Sanders and the very simple public health issues that he's brought up in terms of comparing our society and what we can do in terms of increasing public health and saying, yes, it can be done, it's already been done in these countries. And that is absolutely important information that everyone listening should look into, because it proves, when you look at the happiness indexes, when you look at the way they go about their lives, their public health metrics, they are doing so much better than we are. And that is amazing information. Now, why can't we just superimpose that type of capitalism upon the United States? Right. It's a great question. The difference...
Like, this conversation could happen every day, anytime. Doesn't matter that happened 4 years ago, and that Peter PRogressive has been spouting this for 20 years. Like, and I think this is the whole point. Like, this interview kind of sums up the whole left channels. Like, all of the left channels, this is our summary, right? I mean, I feel like this is like our entire, this is it.
Difference is that we live in a global society.
And the fleeting middle class of the United States is like the fleeting middle class of Denmark and Finland. And the Gini coefficients are still rising amongst all of these countries as well. As more stress on the planet, the more social stress, the more tensions between nations increases. So my point here is that you can't just look at the United States as some isolated bubble and then look at Finland as an isolated bubble and say that this policy should just be implanted here without regard to the evolution of all the countries, the colonization that has produced the landscapes that we see, the borders that we see, without the globalization and the power of transnational corporations. Sweden might be a very happy country. One of its biggest exports are massive military war machines. So there's a synergy to all of this that, just like you drive, my analogy, you drive down the middle class in Los Angeles. Oh, look at these people. There's a dentist, there's a doctor. These people are doing great. They like their jobs. They have a nice home. They have their family, the ideal American dream. But yet, what's on the other side of that middle class neighborhood? Extreme slums and extreme wealth. And that's the way the world is. So that's why Finland and Denmark exist in the class middle ground that they do, because of all the extremes around them.
So you're okay. Oh, I see what you're saying. So you look at them. They're like the middle class of the world, in a sense. So you can't extract them. Oh, I see. So you look at it as one whole.
Now, that's not to discount the important information you learn from them. There's right that we should be looking at these countries to see what's working in terms of increasing public.
Jesus, yeah. He's looking at this like at a whole nother level. Like Jimmy's like, oh, I get it. Okay, so like, yeah, Peter Joseph. Again, if you haven't seen it, the Zeitgeist movie, I've tried to show clips and stuff, but the movie itself gets kind of choppy on the stream, but hopefully again with 1 1/4 it'll play, because this is I can't believe I didn't watch this. I love both these guys. They're Jimmy's a great comedian and very good on his bullshit meter, and Peter Joseph's just very intelligent, and he talks circles over me.
Health and ecological stability, because some of these countries, even in areas of Germany and so on, they're doing robust things to create more sustainability, but they still exist in pockets. And as long as the empires maintain themselves, as they do, China, the United States, Russia, their gravity, what they actually do, will continue to affect the entire planet, and the extremes of their behavior are going to make a lot of the stuff that's happening in these other smaller countries kind of moot, especially in terms of development of sustainability.
So let's start. Let's start with how I don't think people realize. I think people individually realize how tough they have it and how hard it is to tread water. And we can say things like GoFundMe's #1 things to campaigns are for medical expenses. You have a great statistic. You have many great statistics that kind of that are great examples of how bad things have gotten with our system, our economic system. And one of those things that I've been repeating ever since I read it was 63% of people in the United States can't afford a $1,000 emergency.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely still a thing. It's not changing. That's no matter that. If any of you are here for that NPR segment, they can say that there's all that extra income because people couldn't go on vacation, people couldn't go out to eat, so there's all this extra money lying around. There's no extra money lying around. Our rents have gone up, price of everything's gone up. There's no extra money lying around.
Yeah. And so this is the richest country in the world, right? And the history in the world. And yet 63% of its population can't afford a $1,000 emergency. 50% of people are poor or low income. 50% of all wage earners are $30,000 or less. So do you have any more of these great statistics to show how the system has failed?
I should have made a statistic list, but look at the debt. It's from a couple of years ago, but if I remember correctly, 43% of people live beyond their means every year.
Not in the United States?
Yeah, not because they're just greedy, people that want their new TVs.
Right.
There's an element of social inclusion that's inherent to us as a species where, people want to be included in what the society as a whole is doing. So that's what to be poor really means. You're not included, right?
Right.
If you lived in Mexico, as a kind of aside, if you lived in a rural area of Mexico, everyone has great happiness indexes out there, and they have good public health, but they're poor. But they don't know they're poor. It's like the public health research in Cuba.
That's when, everybody you've ever heard go to a third world country for a while. My favorite was always this, these surfers went to like Polynesia, like Indonesia area, and they're like, these people are so poor, but yet every one of them had a giant smile on their face and was so kind. And even though they had nothing, they were trying to give us food, and it was just an insanely heartwarming experience. It's like, yeah, man, like we are also propagated to have things. And that's something we don't even get, that since we've been doing it since birth, it gets worse and worse as it piles on through the generations. But that's something that we don't understand because they don't understand our side either. They don't even understand our comprehension. Yeah, it's a whole thing.
When they're isolated, they're not experiencing this massive wealth divide and the feeling of kind of marginalization because they don't have certain economic means or certain elements of inclusion, and they can't go out and do this or that that other rich people can do. This creates sickness when people experience that. And if you don't have that, and this gets to the heart of what it means to have relative poverty and why socioeconomic inequality is so destructive. So, there's, if you go through epidemiological research, any peer-reviewed studies, just look at it. I encourage anyone to do this. Look at what economic inequality correlates to in countries that have the most of it. The United States, off the chart, violence.
So the correlation
is very much there. Looks like I'm getting choppy. Hope this is still coming through, guys. This is a great interview. I want to go as long as I can, as long as they don't take me down. But on my side thing, it looks kind of choppy. Let me know.
You can use the term precondition. That capitalism is a precondition for
to getting a certain disease and have exposure to certain things, so to speak. You can also say precondition to driving cars with a license and so on. But the point being is, if you have a certain foundation in your society that you can correlate to, which has been statistically done, to numerous outcomes, then that state becomes a precondition, predictably so. And, I think I didn't explain it very well. Precondition is to getting, here's a better example, getting cancer would be to smoke cigarettes. Not everybody who gets cancer smokes lung cancer. Not everybody who smokes cigarettes gets cancer, I should say. But there's a statistical probability that people that are involved in that exposure are going to have that problem. And that's where we are with, let's say, American economic, American zeitgeist, as it were. So a good percentage of the population is going to turn into really hideous materialists, or is going to become more authoritarian, since the rise of Trump, or is going to condone really brute policies in the Middle East and all of this, again, this exceptionalism in America. So the idea of a precondition means something comes before, and if you want to get rid of all those caustic outcomes, you get rid of the precondition. And that's my whole argument in the book, is we have to do something different with our economy. It is the foundation of everything. The Neolithic Revolution happened 12,000 years ago. It set the stage for agriculture, settlement, cities, trade, exchange, labor specialization. Suddenly the entire architecture of what we know as our market economy was built from that point on. And we've been in this disputed groupist, in-group, out-group, warring machine ever since. Now, keep in mind, before that, 99% of human history, no money in markets, lived egalitarian. So anyone that gives you that human nature argument, humans are just mean, the whole Western philosophy, from John Locke to Adam Smith to any of those folks, they all look at, to Thomas Malthus, of course, they all look at human society as this mean, cruel thing, that we are just these beasts, and that this is the way that is absolutely debunked by the historical record.
So another way of saying that is people who advocate for selfishness, right? Correct? And you make that point in the book that that's not actually a good way to form an economic system based on self-interest, right?
I would say that because of the
there's a whole I think it's Dr. Richard Wolff that has a segment, or it might be I'm not gonna look that up right now. But there's this whole segment on how, like, the only way to actually create capital is to extract something from something else. So the idea of capitalism, the whole premonition of capitalism is that you are extracting something from something. So you are creating caste systems. You're creating these tiers automatically when you create capitalism. Like creating capitalism instantly creates a caste system, was the whole segment. It's kind of like it automatically creates tiers, and you end up having 3 tiers, with the one being extremely high, the second one being very high, and the third tier being everything else. And we're getting to that point again, and and once you get to that point, that's when hopefully we can have some revolution.
The determinism that happened when we created agriculture, we created this warring machine that before that time didn't actually exist. I'm trying to put this in terms of...
So there was a time when human beings were hunter-gatherers.
Yes.
And then they made the switch to agriculture.
Yes. And that set the stage for all the I call it geographical determinism, which is, I hate to sound technical, but ultimately what it means is that you have all the characteristics that you define of our society. We have property rights in our society. Obviously, if you do something, you want to protect it. Someone else might steal it that doesn't have the resource. You have security issues, obviously, similar to property rights. You have capital, which is that engine of creation that's done mostly through money, but also relates to labor and so on. And all of that was codified at that period of time. I want to make sure this point is very clear. I apologize if I explained it very well. We are on the trajectory we are because of the agricultural revolution. And we have to get out of this trajectory and reorganize our economy if we expect there to be any kind of harmony on this planet, and if we expect to maintain ecological stability or homeostasis with the habitat.
That was from that video I was talking about was from the rules.org. The rules.org.
This is where we are at this point in time. And how we organize that is going to be the defining feature of the next century. Because as of right now, not to jump to the end here, but I just want to make this point before I forget, with the advent of the pollution crisis, with everything that's happening in terms of resource overshoot, biodiversity loss, about 30 years from now, the refugee crisis is going to go from 65 million to probably about 200 million.
I've seen the 2050 refugee possibility being 300 to 350. So it depends how realistic or how abstract you want to be, I guess. But I would say he's quite the realist. So that 200 to 300 million, very realistic.
As the climate change starts to dry out more regions in sub-Saharan Africa and in Asia, while the other lush regions start to flood because of the rise of the ocean. So what is that going to mean? All of our ponderances of democracy and so on become rather moot when Western society in Europe is going to have an influx of people from these regions that have nowhere else to go.
And this is because of climate change getting not only the encroachment of the sea, but the reduction in topsoil, correct?
There's a whole litany of things, and I want to point out it's not because of those things. It's because
every time he's like, actually, it's a lot of shit. Again, this is a reaction, guys. I've not seen this before. These are two of my favorite people. If you're joining late with us today, and every single time Jimmy has a question, Peter is just like, actually, it's way more. Oh, I love it.
Because we have an economic system that has absolutely no regard for any balance with the environment. Here's the paradox of our market economy in the 21st century. We have a system based on scarcity, which justifies our political nonsense. It's politicized. Oh, we can't have health care for the American public because we can't afford that. Then we can go bomb a country with trillions of dollars into infinity. So the contradiction is immense. But that's the argument, scarcity. But then what do? We promote infinite consumption. Go out and buy everything, keep buying and consuming, because that fuels jobs. That fuels, again, GDP and everything that denotes survival. So we have this backwards system that is completely antithetical to sustainability, and in many ways antithetical to economic harmony and social justice. I firmly argue that you look at the whole world, all these movements, you look at all the people that want to see balance, they want to see fairness, right? That's the whole drive of our progress as a species, to see fairness, gender fairness, creed fairness, ethnicity fairness, national fairness in the sense of immigration and so on. But no one, very few, stop to say, well, what about economic fairness or economic democracy? Everyone stops short because they know they're going to get that label as a communist, Marxist, they're going to be a national socialist, and suddenly they're compared to Hitler. I've had these comparisons made to myself.
Really?
Seriously, it's unbelievable how propaganda, as you know very well, Jimmy, the nonsensical polarization, left, right, Republican, Democrat, Marxist, communist, socialist, instead of thinking about it in terms of that, let's think about what actually works. Instead of looking at our system of economy as some part of a dyad of, is it socialism, is it capitalism? Well, how about we just ask the question, does the system even work?
Does it work?
It doesn't goddamn work.
Well, I mean, you can look around, it's not working, right? So all those statistics that we just gave, it shows you, and the question that I've been asking since I started reading this book is, what do you call a system that takes the richest country in the world and renders half of its population poor or low income? You call that a failed system. And no one talks about this. So let's just talk about the system a little bit more. So automation, everyone's talking about automation. We're going to have driverless cars, driverless trucks, no cashiers anymore. Automation, you say in the book, it spurs inequality. And the fruits of, is that true?
Well, keep going.
And that the fruits of robots go to the upper class.
As in the current system, absolutely. I mean, I think, in fact, the big, since the Great Crisis, the Great Recession, really called it 2007, 2008, and then you had the recovery, right? And it's been well acknowledged that 95% of that recovery money went straight to the upper 5%.
Right, went straight to them.
So that money, really, that wealth is actually output by the process of automation and industrial efficiency. Sorry, that's a slight aside. In other words, all the automation and technological progress we've seen in industry and business has gone to the upper 1%. That is, unfortunately, where the driving force of rapid inequality is coming from. Why? Because we're not using automation in the way that we should as a species, and that is to replace monotonous and boring labor, to free people, to enable people to actually have creativity and do things they want to do. So.
Not to be a spoiler, but in his second movie, Addendum, they go over how, humankind could spend maybe 10 to 20% of their time doing actual work instead of spending, a third of their life, maybe 10% of their life doing work, and the rest of the time we could actually have for ourselves, our unique hobbies, creative endeavors. And that's, I mean, I guess he is a very smart person, but he's also he went to school to be an artist, so that's what his drive was, and then his drive took him into activism and took him into into breaking down society, I guess. I don't know.
So that's because of the system that we're going to follow. Automation itself is the ultimate contradiction of the system at this point, the 21st century, because how are you going to keep people employed if you're going to be replaced by machines? What do you do at that point? It means you have to find another way to compensate against the dawn of universal basic income promoted by Elon Musk and other people that are aware of this. I'm sorry,
yeah, I was going to say what people don't realize when they say, oh, well, if those McDonald's workers want $15 an hour, they'll just replace them with a robot. What those people don't realize when they say that is that when a McDonald's worker gets paid, they take that money and put it right back into the economy. When a robot at McDonald's gets paid, it does not go back into the economy. That money now gets actually extracted from the economy, and it goes into a bank account, probably offshore somewhere, or it goes into the pocket of a millionaire or a billionaire who already has all the stuff he needs to buy. So that creates this emptiness inside of our economy. And the way I heard someone else describe it, I think Mark Blythe said the problem with robots is robots don't buy stuff. And our whole economy is based on us buying stuff. That's why after 9/11, George Bush said, go out shopping and go to your destinations, right? And so, because this is what our whole economy is based on. If we're afraid to shop, our economy will constrict. So automation is going to mean constriction, and all that extra money being saved by robots is not going to go back into our economy, but go back to the 1%. Right? Do I have it correct?
You do, absolutely. Of course, the pundits will say, well, if you give more money to the business class, so it's just trickle down, as it always does, right?
But the evidence is in, right? We've tried this trickle-down economics now going on 40 years. And by the way, just the sound of that. Please, sir, may I have a trickle? Yeah. Is there a trickle of money for me? Please, sir, trickle. That's what that sounds like. That's exactly what it is. And we're living in it doesn't work. One more thing I want to just I heard someone talking this morning about the reason why Trump may get reelected in 2020 is because we're very close to full employment. And that just by sheer economic force, people are going to start getting raises. And the reason why Bill Clinton was so popular in the 90s, even while being impeached, which he was because that was the first time in a long time workers saw a raise in pay. It hasn't happened since, and it didn't happen before since 1980. And so it might happen right now with Trump because we're in very close to full employment. And
it didn't happen, did it? We did not get raises. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon either. Which is why we need a strike. And we're going to go through the 2022 election cycle. We're not going to talk about. We're going to maybe bring up some Democrats are going to maybe bring up $15 wages again, which has been a topic now for 8 years, 10 years, something like that. With inflation, we're not looking at 25. Our new number is 25. All right.
And is that what do you say about that? Is that true? And
since the end of the Obama administration and the Trump administration's beginning to now, 90% of those new jobs are gig economy jobs. They're not real jobs with benefits. They don't have health insurance.
What does that mean, gig?
It means that they're just freelancers. Yeah. Freelancers that have no liability, they can be fired at a whim.
Like an Uber driver or a Lyft driver.
Absolutely. And I think it's really depressing that we hold up this statistic. Well, first of all, as you know, there's a massive percentage, probably 12, 13% of people that are off the grid, so to speak, when it comes to unemployment. They're just not even in the system anymore because they don't try. And they live on the outskirts and they do complementary things in their neighborhood. So unemployment is actually a lot higher than
so the real unemployment, what would you say?
I'd say it's like 14%.
Really?
Yeah, there's people that track these metrics every year, and I'd say it's maybe a little less than that now, but it's close to that, because they're not counting these folks. These people live on the outskirts, they're off the grid, literally. They're not metrically denoted. So again, back to the gig economy, so we apparently have more people employed, but they're employed in terrible jobs that don't have any future. And
just to speak to that, 44% of homeless people have a job.
Yeah, exactly.
So what does that tell you about the jobs in America?
Exactly. So it's not an obvious.
Now I doubt any of you guys have been watching the whole time, but if you have, maybe my moderator, but yeah, that's, going back, I said in the beginning of the show that when they talk about homeless numbers, they're usually talking about the people that are actually straight up homeless without jobs, which might be that 300,000 to 600,000, that 500,000 is what they say, 600,000 is what some say, but there's 2 million people right now homeless that are living in their cars that have jobs that are not on the streets or not looking. The 500 to 600,000 number is based on people that are trying to stay at homeless shelters on an average night. That's what that number is based on. So there's people that have cars, there's people that have, good spots or whatever that number doesn't count into. So that's why the real number is maybe more like 2 million, and 40% of those people are working full time.
So that's not just like GDP, it's not a metric of progress. You have to go deeper.
Right.
You just throw this stuff out there. Of course, Trump being whatever he is. He'll give you the superficial everything. Yes. And as the Republican Party will support him. One thing I want to say about the unemployment thing, just to make a point, the broad social point, not to distract, is that what has been the greatest driver of oppression on this planet since human history, that is oppression of labor. So the automation thing, if we can allow it to have fruition, will create an amiable society. If we can start to remove the need of labor for income, we will remove that pressure that has been the most oppressive force from abject human slavery up into the 64 million slaves in the world today, based on UN standards. I apologize, that metric's not correct. I think it's 50 million, yeah. And they're being manipulated through, through the sex trafficking or through domestic house trafficking. I'm sure you heard about people in Washington, political leaders that basically have slaves doing their laundry. So all of that could go away if we start to reorganize our economy. Just that simple notion of generating a new social construct where we're not constantly at war with each other. Employees are at war with other employees. Companies are at war with other companies. That's what I talked about at the end of the book, because you can do it.
So you do say, in fact, I wrote it down, everyone can enjoy a life of leisure if the wealth created by machines is shared.
That's actually what Stephen Hawking said.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I quoted him in the book.
Okay.
He's absolutely right. In his general intuitive brilliance when it came to social issues, it makes perfect sense. If you here's one thing that I think is worth bringing up.
I think that needs to be mentioned again. If we all benefit from mechanical industry, then we could all. I need to hear that again. That was.
Companies, that's what I talked about at the end of the book, because you can do it.
So you do say, in fact, I wrote it down, everyone can enjoy a life of leisure if the wealth created by machines is shared.
That's actually what Stephen Hawking said.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I quoted him. Okay. He's absolutely right. In his general intuitive brilliance when it came to social issues, it makes perfect sense. Here's one thing that I think is worth bringing up before I forget, is that we have this infinite wants culture. We have people that think that we're insatiable, right? Humans are insatiable. They want the 10 Lamborghinis. They want the room with the 700 rooms, the mansion 700, whatever.
That's not true, right?
It's preposterous on its head to say that that would be true. I think it's a burden to see that anyone would even want to have that kind of liability. It's a value system problem that's been generated through our market-driven status system that says you are what you want and you are how much money you have in your bank account. But back to my core point, though, is that value system, if that's true, then we might as well just slit our throats right now. I mean, this is what mainstream economists, political economists, philosophers of economy have been saying forever. And it's held up by all libertarians, like, you can't have any kind of balance or equal distribution. You can't do that because people are irrational, basically, infinite wants. And that is absolutely preposterous, that this idea is a myth.
In fact, there was a study done, you could probably remember the name of it, I don't, but the numbers that I remember being in the study was that they tried to figure out your level of happiness as relates to your income.
All right, $75,000.
So talk about
that. So that's a good metric, and I think that's a little loose, but based on the polls that they did, once you reach a threshold of $75,000 a year, I'm not sure what region they're accounting for. Assuming they're compensating and averaging it out for
like real estate would be a bigger factor in Los Angeles and New York and San Francisco than it would be in Des Moines.
Exactly.
But so roughly there's a number. And they said it was 75,000, and I'd say if you live in LA, it would be probably 100,000.
Yeah, you're right.
But after that point,
it doesn't influence their happiness.
You don't get happier.
They become probably more confused. You might like in my book how I denote what happens to the rich people as they go up the economic ladder. Remember that section? No, where it talks about all the studies that have been done, a lot of them historically, how people, when they get more and more wealth, they can't recognize empathy.
I was literally gonna go that way. Wow, that's freaking. I think I've seen enough Peter Joseph that my mind maybe kind of, when it comes to this topic, I think like he does now, because I've taken his interviews and people, that he thinks are qualified, and I've listened to those people. I've read their books, and I think that's maybe my same philosophy in this subject, but that's right where I was going to.
No, you have right to talk about things.
They don't donate anything but like museums and churches or colleges, universities for like higher education. So, they never contribute to poverty. So the poorest people of our world, especially the United States, but statistically denoted across the world, are so much more kind because they have actual identification with the common folk. So the more you get wealthy, the more you separate yourself, the more you become like Trump, the more it becomes some kind of weakness to care. And these people, as denoted in the book, a whole litany of things that just make me cringe. It seems counterintuitive. I think you get more and more, the more relaxed you become. That's not what happens. No, they become much more, I'd say, socially Darwinistic.
Yes.
Malthusian in the sense that they feel so entitled. And they relay that. And then what happens? Where do those people go? They go into the politics. They go into the lobby. So then we wonder, how did we get here? Well, because the sickness of elitism driven by money and wealth is what runs the government and most governments in the world. And that's why we're in this parallel state that we're in.
Yes, so in a sense, being wealthy starts to impact you in a mental health position in a negative way. You start to lose empathy for other people to the point where you can't they did. The studies are awesome where they couldn't pick up on social cues. Right. The richer you got, you lost your ability to pick up on the people's social cues from their face. Right. They've done other studies where they even played games with Monopoly, and so they would give one person way more money at the start, and then when that person won at the end, they would say, "What did you think it was fair?" They go, "Yeah, I think I played better than everybody." So people who end up winning, even when the game is rigged in their favor and they know it, still think they deserve what they got.
Now relate that back to the sickness of the billionaire class.
Yes.
Here's what I look for whenever I think of a billionaire, maybe positive ones. There's always something philanthropic that has its role. That we should commend some nuance, commend some element of their behavior. But here's the clincher: if you're a billionaire and you don't admit that there's something very wrong with a system that allows you to be a billionaire, then you're kind of off the moral radar as far as I'm concerned. You can go out and promote all the things that you think are positive. You can be the Elon Musk humanist or the Richard Branson or the Bill Gates or whatever. But if you're not acknowledging the fact that it's wrong, for that to exist just like it's wrong for there to be a homeless person on the street, those extremes should not exist in human society, and they do nothing positive. And anyone that justifies this in terms of the innovation, that's another conversation we can have. No single person innovates. Everyone builds upon everything else laterally in terms of our communication actively and through generational time. So this whole idea, you get what you work for. Well, if that's the case, then every single person should be born into a blank space. Right. No streets or infrastructure. They have to build everything themselves to get what they work for. So these preposterous philosophical notions, they need to be shut down.
You make points about the charity giving from billionaires, and it's really interesting about they don't want their tax dollars to go to the government, but there's these billionaires. I met one of them. And they have this, I forget the name of the project, but they're going to give away half of their wealth or something. Do you know about this?
Supposedly, right?
And
are you referring to the old billionaire PAC?
Yes, talk about that.
What was the name of it?
I can't think of it.
So Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, a bunch of billionaires got together, and it's a response to Occupy Wall Street, by the way. It's just a big PR move.
Yes.
They say, we're going to set up this fund, and everyone's going to make an agreement to give half, if not more, of their wealth to charity when they die. And we want to, and this is their poetry, and that's all it is, because no one's really done it.
And
if they do it to their own private foundation. So Bill Gates is like, I gave away all my money. Didn't. He started a foundation and dumped his money inside of it with numerous tax loopholes to benefit off of. Not to say that he doesn't mean well, but it's part of an elitist narcissism that these people actually think they're more important in their views. They can influence countries. They can change the healthcare like the Gates Foundation in some country without any democratic presence at all.
Right.
And that's just been more and more exposed now, guys. Like the Gates Foundation controlling Africa, getting vaccines in places that they can afford it, in places they can't afford it, then we're blocking them from getting other vaccines, and we're blocking copyright infringement. It's just the whole system set up completely backwards, and the Gates Foundation is proving it right now during COVID.
That is totalitarian philanthropy, and that's just wrong.
That's it. So these billionaires, they don't want democracy in their philanthropy.
And that's why they keep money out of the government. They keep it offshore. They do to keep it in the pocket of their little crew, because they're always libertarian. Like people like Peter Thiel, you heard this guy? The founder. Oh my God, he's the poster child of just everything ideologically wrong with the way. He's the one that started the idea of seasteading. You heard this thing? No, this is great. He talked about this years ago. He wants to build artificial islands off the coast in international waters using a law. And he wants to create basically an Ayn Rand utopia where you can have your libertarian values, there's no government, everyone's just going to be trading, and it's going to be utopian and market system. Absolutely unbelievable when I read about that. I couldn't believe how delusional you could possibly become. Only if you're a billionaire could you do that, obviously. Like if the whole island of billionaires, that's great. But if you set in motion, I'll say this, if you set in motion on an island the mechanics of this system in and of itself with no regulation, no government, it would self-destruct in a matter of moments. Because you can't have a warfare system without regulation. There's got to be something without it self-destructing. In other words, warfare meaning the market externalities of this is not to change the subject, but I want to bring this up. What the system does is create externalities in the form of poverty, in the form of war, in the form of insurgencies, in the form of terrorism, of course in the form of pollution and climate change. All of these things are things that the system can't account for. So it just dismisses them into the ether as things that aren't related. And when people argue for the system, the pro-libertarian folks, they always think that those things are anomalous. Oh, it's the state government that messed up the free market, and now we have poverty. It's the state government that's not doing their job right, and so now we have pollution. No, the government exists in a...
I don't know how often I hear that. It's like, it's the state's fault that these things are being allowed to happen. But then they're like, no red tape, don't regulate our businesses. So they say both things.
In a middle ground between trying to organize and stop the anarchy of this system of self-interest and competition, and it's also a tool of differential advantage for the most privileged of the business class. Point being the Koch brothers. Koch brothers are right there influencing government as you would expect them to be. While at the same time, there are people like Bernie Sanders that are trying their best to stop this kind of behavior. And that's the dynamic. And who's going to win? Who's going to win in that circumstance? So I joke, I say, well, if you have a whole society based on money, self-interest, profit. You know what? The Koch brothers should own and run America.
Right.
That would be consistent with our policy as a philosophy in general in this country. And so why do we object? It's just hypocrisy in my mind. People can see that, you know?
Yeah. I want to say one more moment on this charity idea. There's a real, so that to me seems like a real nefarious reason why these billionaires like Bill Gates want to have control over their own charity functions with their money, right? Instead of having to pay a reasonable amount of taxes and then have democracy distribute that money where it's needed in society, they don't want that. They don't want a democracy to decide where their money goes. They want, just like they do in their own corporations, you know, Richard Wolff talks about this, Professor Wolff, democracy at work. There is no democracy at work where you spend most of your life. You're in a totalitarian system, which is what a corporation is, right? It's a top-down totalitarian system. There's no democracy. You're not voting to who's going to be on the board. The people with the money do. So when they do their, instead of when they don't take their money and do charity like, hey, we're going to go solve homelessness, which Jeff Bezos could do like that. Jeff Bezos is worth around $120 billion. It would cost $20 billion to end homelessness in the United States, yet he doesn't do it.
It would cost $30 billion
to end world hunger.
To end extreme poverty,
To end extreme poverty worldwide, $30 billion. That number never gets old to me. It never doesn't make me mad. It never raises my hairs. It never infuriates me that is the number that we just raised. It's also the number that we just raised our military budget by while we're not currently in a war.
Yeah. You could end world hunger with throw. He could end world hunger and homelessness in the United States and still have about $70 billion left over, which would still make him one of the richest guys in the world, yet he doesn't do it. And to me, that's because people like Jeff Bezos are megalomaniacs. And that's a real thing.
You know the statistic regarding people with high business power are almost, not always, but a very high percentage of them are psychopaths.
Yes.
By the very definition of what it takes for them to get to where they are, the type of gaming mentality and difference, they actually have medical psychopathology.
Yes.
And that's well-established statistic. We should look at them. I mean, just go back to the values of the president and the corporate concept. He approaches his work as a president like he's a CEO of a country. And that shouldn't be a surprise. But the only thing I will say, remember Thomas Piketty wrote a great book, Capital of the 21st Century, and he criticizes, wealth inequality. And Bill Gates made a big article in rebuttal to it. And what does he say? He goes, "You should."
Just for the record, today Bill Gates attacked Elon Musk. Oh, and it's just literally just the rich poking at the rich, and the fact that it even hit headlines shows you how much mainstream media cares about billionaire opinions. When Elon Musk was a rich kid who bought out and pushed out the people from his industry, and same thing with Bill Gates, who was just a rich kid in a room, and a bunch of people created this idea, this whole software technology, and he was just a rich person in the room and bought them all out, pushed them all out.
Shouldn't lump me in with those people that just buy a bunch of yachts. I want to use my money for good, and it implies that it's his right to make the decisions for the world effectively in an undemocratic way.
That's right.
And that is definitely a sick state of mind.
So what people like Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos end up doing is they don't go end homelessness or give money directly to help. They'll go, I'm going to fund law school for women, and I'm going to, that's the kind of stuff they do, and we don't get to decide how we need the money used. So that's really interesting. People don't realize that. They go, oh, they're rich, they deserve it, they should be able to do what they want with their money. Just like you said, they weren't born into a blank space. They're standing on the shoulders of giants.
Exactly.
And because of our system, the way it's been so rigged in the powerful people's favor, meaning the people with money, the way it's been so rigged is that someone like Jeff Bezos can now be the richest person in the history of the world.
All right, we're like at the halfway point of this interview. I was going to stop at 10 o'clock, but there's a handful of you on, and this is, this is a reaction. I can't believe I missed this interview. It is a fantastic conversation, and I think we should keep having the conversation. I think we should keep going for it. So I'm not going to stop until it's only halfway through the interview. I could listen to this all day. I could watch it from scratch again, but reaction video. Let's keep going with Jimmy and Peter Joseph.
Including pharaohs. Yeah. And at the same time, the people generating that income for him are on food stamps.
Yeah.
And what kind of person does that? A megalomaniac psychopath. Yep. And people don't realize that Jeff Bezos is a psychopath. Yet he owns the Washington Post. He's in the bed with CIA to the tune of $600 million. And he also sits on the board of the Pentagon. They're the richest man in the world who literally looks like Dr. Evil. Owns the newspaper of note, is in bed with the deep state intelligence community, has all your information stored, because we live in a surveillance state. That's why the CIA contracted him to store your information, and then then he sits on the Pentagon board, and we're living in an endless war. We are living in an Orwellian nightmare of perpetual war right now. Right now, we're spending 40% more on our military than we were at the height of the Afghanistan and Iraq war. 40% more, and we never had a meeting about that. There was never a town hall. There were no op-eds.
I think our new military budget just hit double. We just hit double of what it was during the height of the Iraq war. Our military budget is currently double at a time that we're not in an active war. Of course, I guarantee you any military person can tell you that we are in skirmishes all across the planet, but we're not in an active war, and we're at double what we were at the height of the Iraq and Afghanistan war.
Spent that money, and you make the point in the book that it's because rich countries can spend as much as they want. Why is that?
If you're an empire, which the U.S. is the cliche empire, but China's an empire and Russia's an empire, you have so much dominance in the way that things unfold that when you take loans from other countries like the United States does as a debtor nation, it's not expected that they're ever going to pay this stuff back as long as the U.S. dollar is strong. Now, you saw Iran recently took the euro away they applied the euro as opposed to the dollar for petrol trade and other things. But that's a good sign in terms of deflating the power of the U.S. dollar, not necessarily for us because it's all systemically related, but in terms of the broader kind of moral view. So the United States, it's been estimated across the world that by 2040, 60 to 70% of all nations will be bankrupt by their own metrics. The United States isn't susceptible to that because it just makes its own money. It has this arrangement with the central bank, which is just a fraudulent show, what's it called? Sleight of hand. Yeah, it's a sleight of hand between this big banking cartel that makes money out of nothing in exchange for bonds that we make out of nothing in the Treasury. And so suddenly all this fake debt is made between literally just it's just one big group of people that don't really care. The Federal Reserve doesn't care if the United States pays its money back. It just needs its cartel to be respected and the power of the financial class and financial system to be as strong as it ever has been, which is why you see Goldman Sachs sitting next to the president across every administration. So
let me stop for a second. So let me explain what you're saying. So a poor nation goes to the IMF, gets a loan. Now, they're immediately in debt. Now, they can't pay that debt back. The IMF goes back to that country and says, now you have to sell out some of your public space to our corporations so you can pay your debt, because you're in debt. Now, the United States is in debt to the tune of $19 trillion right now. We're never going to pay that back. And it doesn't matter because, as you say in the book, money is made out of thin air, and they only care about regulations and the public perception, right? And that any dominant country, meaning the United States, can extend debt to infinity, moving the goalposts as they go along. And by 2050, you say 60% of the world's countries will be bankrupt, but we'll never be bankrupt because we print our own money.
Well, other countries do that too, mind you. But the difference is those countries aren't empires. They don't have the strength. The transnational, there's 80% of all the major transnational corporations are U.S. based. So all those huge companies, they don't really care about nations anymore, as you imagine, the trade agreements and TPP. But there's still some grounding to U.S. policy and U.S. favoritism and, of course, U.S. political power, because U.S. political power is really global political power. So the nest of the U.S. empire is alive and well when it comes to the merger of politics, geopolitics, and, of course, business trade agreements and all of that stuff. That's why the U.S. is so untouchable. And the joke, every couple of years, we're going to shut down the government because we have to increase the debt limit. It's a complete comic routine. It's like
we just did that again, or we're still doing it. I'm not paying attention anymore, but because it's a joke, guys. That whenever they talk about the debt ceiling, it's a joke. It's something we made up to ourselves in like the 1920s or 30s, and it's been a joke ever since.
You're not doing that. So that's the point there. But other countries, just like the poor of the world, that suffer with debt, they do get screwed. So they're the ones that get their resources taken through austerity and through different trade agreements. Remember, the IMF and the World Bank are basically Western institutions. They are an extension of Western hegemony. Their interest is the neoliberal interest, which goes back again to a think tank years ago in the 70s that was trying to counter communism, that said we need something to counter communism to start to end any kind of socialist ideology across the world. So neoliberal.
Always making an enemy, and that's 1800s, we've been seeing that we always need an enemy. We needed some big enemy, and after England and France decided to stop being each other's enemy, we needed a Western enemy. We needed a different state of mind enemy, and that's how we keep the war engine going. That's how we keep people divided. Is always what the key role is, keeping people divided.
Neoliberalism is our philosophy, and we're going to put it out there like a religion, and that's what all these institutions do, which is why you can't have any country, such as I don't know, almost all Latin American countries have been overthrown as they tried to do something different throughout the 50s, 60s, and 70s. One thing I recently did talk of was a man named Salvador Allende from Chile. Salvador Allende was democratically elected. He was stern, not a Marxist in the traditional sense. He didn't like the bureaucracy of the Soviet Union. He wasn't supported by the Soviet Union. But in Chile, he said, okay, I'm going to turn this around. He was so sick.
Yeah. I just got a warning. It's slowing me down. Sorry, guys. It's going to take a second. All right. I am supposedly not streaming now, so I'm sorry if things are choppy. Says I have poor health. It just gave me a notification.
Of U.S. transnational corporations taking all the resources of the land, U.S.-based, as they did. People like John Perkins, he talked about a lot of this stuff. And so he's going to nationalize these industries, and I'm going to set up a new system of economic organization. This is an important tidbit of history in terms of the kind of solutions I talk about at the end of this book. In the 1970s, a man named Stafford Beer, he was really famous in systems engineering, all about how to make systems work, be viable, as he would call it. What does it mean to have a working engine that's self-contained? What does it mean to have a working economy? What does it mean to have a working social system?
Well, I am sorry, guys. It looks like all right, back to health. It's working again. I'm going to keep going.
How do we approach that subject scientifically? And this is what the work of cybernetics, Stafford Beer, Ross Aspey, all these guys that no one's ever heard of, but actually very important.
Is this called systems theory?
You call it that, but they call it cybernetics for many years. It's basically an interdisciplinary view of how things work in both science and humanities. It's very deep.
Yeah.
And then it also relates to sociology and social constructs, as we would imagine. These are systems. They have properties. Systems have properties that are shared throughout the universe, in fact. No metaphysics needed there. There's certain things that are inherent to your body that can be emulated in the way we organize society. Biomimicry, but I won't go too far down that road. But in the 1970s, he was called up by AMA, who said, I want you to develop a new system for my country to figure out how we can organize and optimize our economic flows with my new nationalized industries. Because the company just bailed, and Allende was considered the enemy of the world at this point. Because you don't do that in capitalist society. You don't knock out your corporations and start nationalizing.
Because then they're going to call them Marines.
Yeah, exactly, which is what they did, because he was overthrown and he died in the overthrow. But before he died, for 2 years, he had this amazing project called Project CyberSyn. So cyber and SYN, people can look this up. It's a tidbit of history, it's been propagandized. They put a big thing in the New York Times, Chile, now run by socialist computer. No, what they did is they tried to figure out how to take into account all the dynamics and variability of a robust national economy and figure out how to organize it as a unit, not in the bureaucracy of the Soviet Union. These guys hated that, and they hated it. Stafford Beer, the organizers, hated it, because it was just this big, horrible bureaucracy. It was extremely inefficient. It didn't have real-time information. It didn't work, as we've come to find out, in the way that it needed.
You mean the communist system?
The communist system as we know it, yeah. So this was the only attempt in history where the actual scientific approach, things I advocate in this book, was applied, and it almost got into fruition if Allende wasn't overthrown by the CIA. I mean, it's one of those moments in history. There's actually a guy that wrote a book about it in Spanish. He wrote a book, sci-fi book, to describe what happened if it actually worked. Yeah, I want to read it.
So this is so you're saying that in Chile he was trying to institute what you are prescribing as the fix to our current system,
an interdisciplinary approach to economic management that's democratized. And we had the technology to do that. Back then, they used telex machines. They had one computer. They had to engage very crudely, with all the people that were organized in different areas of industry. It's a big thing. I won't go into details of it. But what I advocate is that we have all this amazing technology. We have the ability to communicate instantly. We have the ability to track what we're doing to, say, be sustainable. Imagine that. Imagine if the industries of our...
And I just have to say, I was watching live streams today from Jimmy Dore. I was watching a live stream from Savvy. I was watching a live stream from Revolutionary Blackout Network, and they all were saying that certain words or certain topics were getting their streams taken out, throttled, and you can watch your stream go from a certain viewers down to nothing. You can watch your connection go from excellent connection right past moderate, right down to poor or bad. And that's what happened to me a few times now. So if I get cut again, guys, I will be doing a SToney PRogressive tomorrow around midnight, probably a little earlier, like 11:30 tomorrow. And we'll try to do midnight every night this weekend again. And we'll keep fighting.
The world actually cared about tracking, say, rainforest depletion or biodiversity loss. And then they stopped their behavior based upon those limits when they're reached. We don't do that. We don't have any contingency plan, which is why we're again flying off that cliff on this train. So and we can talk about the 5 things. We're going to talk about 5 different transitions at the end of the book: the application of automation, the move from property to access, which we've already seen trends of that occur with, say, Uber and so on. People don't need to own one of everything; they need access to what they need, create a more communal environment.
So you're talking about that's like when you see zip cars, things like that.
Exactly, but more specific. Like I envision a deep future where people don't really own anything; they have access to what they need at all times. Doesn't mean they don't have things. Doesn't mean they have a laptop, or computer, or whatever your property may be that you use it frequently. But imagine the freedom to be able to get up, fly somewhere, and have access to the resources that you may need, whether it be clothes or technology, a place to stay, all systemically designed and interactive and updated and dynamic. We're not talking about a static thing. I know it sounds very sci-fi when I talk about this way. But imagine that kind of freedom. I see freedom as no problem. I see freedom as being a part of this home, this planetary home, and moving around freely and having access to what you need as you go along.
So
that's a hard concept.
That's a super hard concept for people to wrap their minds around because it's never been seen anywhere before.
Well, but except before the Neolithic Revolution.
Right.
So where the value systems were very communal, the value systems were sustainable. To the extent you want to talk about the solutions I propose,
let's do that. Yeah, I want to talk about the solutions.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So the 5 things, as I mentioned. So automation. Let's stop this tension. We should be moving to automate everything as fast as possible. I find it offensive when I go to a restaurant these days. I see the most amazing person, the most amazing culmination of the history of the universe, the nervous system, the human being, the most complicated thing, this end peak of entropy, and they're waiting on you. This amazing brain is sitting there waiting on you like a slave. It's an offensive thing to even occur at this point in time in the 21st century. Nobody should be doing this. They're wasting their lives, their potential. People, they retire now and they die soon after. They don't know what to do with themselves. They've been so destroyed and bankrupted. Their creativity just ruined by the process of market slavery, which is effectively what it is. So automation needs to be put forward deliberately. Go on, sorry.
So how when you go to a restaurant, how are you going to get your food?
You automate it. It's very simple. Just like they do in San Francisco now. They have these systems in Japan that do now. There's always going to be some kind of oversight of any system. There's management that's important, but the more efficient you become with the development of systems technology, like in a big factory, like a shoe factory. These people they're making 300 shoes an hour, and they're not sitting there doing it. They're watching and managing the machines, and they're making sure the system is working, and then they take proper action. And I think that's kind of where the roles of humanity will end up in the future, which doesn't necessarily.
I've been saying my job is going to be obsolete for a decade. It's just a matter of time, and with more and more people going to higher wages for servers, you will see more and more restaurants trying to use robot labor to make sure they extract wealth. And like things like burgers and chicken sandwiches can be done on a conveyor, and bartending can be done on a conveyor, at least for the service bar. I heard one person tell me that there'll never be no bartenders because sad old drunk fuckers need somebody to talk to. But in the general, eventually, it's all going to be automated.
To be paid for either. We have a domestic economy. People do tons of things, billions and billions of dollars a year. Women, men do in their homes. They do it because they want to survive. They do it because it's their world. And this is the way it extends out to the rest of the society and community. Which leads me to say localization. So we have globalization. So I talked about automation. Let's go to localization. We've had globalization. This blight. The food you eat every day, travel about 2,000 miles before it gets here. That's preposterous. And we have now advanced types of farming agricultural systems, advanced production systems, 3D printing, where you don't need to have all this constant dynamic and waste. You bring things back home and you produce things for your, imagine that, you produce things for your actual community as opposed to the globalized ethic. It's just too destructive. Gandhi saw this. I mentioned in the book too. He hated industrialization. He's like, well, you're going to have a high propensity for power consolidation and corruption if you go through globalized industry. And he talked about oceanic circles overlapping in communities. So imagine Los Angeles has an oceanic circle within the other terrain, other city terrain of California. And we've localized all of our food production as best as we can through advanced means. Just that fundamental logic, that needs to be applied. You would reduce energy consumption and waste probably by 70% almost instantly if you did that because of how rampant and how wasteful globalization is today. So automation, localization. Now there's access, as I mentioned briefly before, and I'll just reiterate that. An access society means you move away from property as much as you can, inspiring the ethic of actually sharing. So in the Zeitgeist movement, there's people in Toronto that have a tool library. No one uses their tools every minute and every day, so they share it in a community. Everyone accesses these tools as they need them in a kind of rental system. Brilliant. Library.
Tool shed, garden shed, mechanic shed, things like that could be communal so easily.
Itself, one of the oldest institutions, sharing knowledge. I'm surprised it actually hasn't been shut down, frankly, because it's against the market ethic. So you can take and build upon that, where no one owns a car anymore. You don't need it. You have automated systems. Uber's already on the edge of this, and you just extend that logic out to just about anything you think of, depending on how much use you need. that is how much access you need, and that's where the metrics come in. In the book, I talk about how there's 257 million cars in America, but yet the people only use it about 5% of the time as far as the ownership of an individual vehicle, which means, if I remember correctly, only about 25 million cars are actually needed to assist anyone moving around in America. So if you create
25 million cars, we could lose 70% of the cars out there?
Automated system to do that. That's a 1,000% decrease or whatever of how many cars you're actually producing. Incredible sustainability potential right there. It's against the antithetical of the market, of course, because the market wants you to buy more and more and more. So anytime you move towards a conservative ethic, anything where you're trying to do that, you're slamming up against the entire driver of so-called progress, which is this incessant need to buy and consume. So that's another side. So access, automation, localization. Okay, that's a big one. Open source. Open source in the intellectual community has been a godsend in their view. People open source things, they share amongst the community digitally. Everyone can contribute to the development of a given idea, whether it's a good or a software, as is most common.
So open source means to someone like me, meaning that if a company like Apple, which they don't open source, correct? No, that's a bad example. So another company, explain what that means.
Well, like Tesla open sourced.
So what does that mean?
It means he releases all the blueprints and the design information. Now, that's a very specific thing.
And why would you do that?
Well, for his reasons, there's a couple reasons for that that aren't as altruistic. But you do that because if you share knowledge, as we talked about prior, you get more minds working on a given problem, you're going to have more rapid progress. As opposed to sitting in a board. So imagine the cell phone companies, how many there are, instead of this constant warfare of, let's design a cell phone with a little button here that does this. Oh, I saw that button, let's put that button on our thing. People seem to like it. You have this back and forth, this wasteful back and forth that's constantly mimicking and creating new things and constantly one-upping itself, and everyone's wondering whether they should spend another $1,000 on another iPhone next year. Instead of you do that, you open source it, and you let people go on digitally and design this stuff directly. Because with CAD 3D engineering and other programs now, you can crash cars digitally and have virtually the exact same effect because of how accurate the replication software is. So you can test these things. Open source would destroy the entire corporate industry if it was done properly. Imagine a world where you say you're interested in a microphone. You're like, I need a microphone. You go into a website and you are able to look at all the existing designs, but you have a background in engineering. Like, I don't like any of these. These aren't accomplishing what I want. So you go in and you actually start to design it yourself. You open source that. Everybody else sees what you're doing. And through AI systems, which are already out there as well, that can do certain things to correct analysis that people are putting in. For example, AI systems can now design cars and stuff like that.
Artificial intelligence.
Exactly. That's kind of where the future rests in terms of really good decision making, because they can take in the parameters more rapidly than humans can. But we have a bunch of people designing something, and eventually you end up with the most advanced cell phone possible at that point in time, period. Because everyone's input democratically is in there, and it's correlated, it's combined. So in this world, you end up with a democratic economy where people are engaging in building, and then what happens? Where does it go? And that's where 3D printing advents are coming to fruition. So imagine instead of globalization, where you have corporations stretched across the world, you come back to localization once again, and you're using advanced 3D printing systems. And here's what's going to happen. Our Buckminster Fuller coined a term called ephemeralization, and it means more with less. If you look at the whole of human society, we're constantly being able to increase our productivity and efficiency with less and less resources. So the first computer was gigantic, weighed tons, enormous amounts of power. Now this chip in your phone is 1,000 times more powerful. It's almost non-existent how small and light and how much power it takes. That's called ephemeralization. Jeremy Rifkin came up with a similar term I want to present called more with less, or zero marginal cost. So if you have a machine that produces, say, costs $1,000 and it produces its first good, that first good technically costs $1,000, all things being equal. The second good, $500. The second good, $250, and so on. Eventually, if you have a machine that's robust enough, you end up with zero marginal cost. It doesn't cost anything to, say, make a book or to output even technology, because we've become so advanced and efficient with it. So what you're going to end up having, as far as I'm concerned, is a democratic economy where people are designing and open source constantly online, creating the goods that we all share. And then when they get manufactured, we have very specific 3D manufacturing systems that are localized in regions to produce those goods. Because with that ephemeralization process, you will eventually have systems, mark my words, that will not only produce cars, they will produce televisions, they will produce computers, they will produce any kind of engineering, electronics that you can think of, because that's where it's all leading down to. Not to use the ploy of Star Trek, remember Star Trek had the replicator. When it comes to, again, it's sci-fi fantasy, but when it comes to, let's say, molecular engineering, I guarantee you a laptop will be 3D printed within the next 5 years. Someone will develop the technology that has enough interdisciplinary, so to speak, capacity, where it can build the chips and everything else in one swoop at zero marginal cost. I mean, we're already almost there. Look how cheap laptops are, just by the general force of the market through mass consumption, right? So that's how things become cheap.
I buy Mac, and that's how I know.
It still doesn't matter.
They're real expensive. Yeah, they've made it still expensive. So anyway, so let me go automation, localization,
access,
open source.
And then the final thing is real fundamental. It's just how we network information together. We don't actually track anything, as I said earlier. So you got the Internet of Things, the idea of connecting all your devices to the Internet. And I don't quite know the merit of connecting your toaster or your refrigerator to the Internet, but people are doing it. But that's just pop culture stuff right there. But what that actually sets the groundwork for is an ability to, in real time, know exactly what your society is doing economically. You track it in a very fundamental sense. In our economy now, money is transferred, we buy things, and this metric is slowly generated literally over months. And the reports that people in the Federal Reserve, or Treasury, the U.S. government, or any of those economic entities, they get that stuff months late. Like, it doesn't mean anything. It's not important information at that point. These numbers that we get about unemployment, that's really old numbers, actually. So when you have the Internet of Things and digitized network feedback, you have literally a consciousness for a society, a country, or a planet. You actually know what you're doing. So what does that mean? Oh, well, we're producing this good, and we're running out of timber in this area. Let's check to see instantly if we have other areas that have a surplus, meaning that they're natural, they're regenerative, and we're not depleting. And then suddenly you have things that are going to self-regulate our society so we don't self-destruct. Something that we don't have the discipline to do now because of the drive of the market force, the drive of overconsumption, and so on. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So we need all that. And it's fundamental economic principles that I'm putting forward, but how you put them together.
We do need all that. I think that is a ridiculously good five-point overview of things, and not one of those things can I say any better, because he is twice as smart as me, even when I'm not baked. So that was a SToney PRogressive interview from a while ago. That's our old school clip. That's our interview clip. That is our night. And thank you guys for joining me. If you're watching this later, check me out. I always try to live stream after Jackson Hinkle, but he is on right now. I got an early stream today. Go check out Jackson Hinkle. And then if you're checking this out later, check me out after Jackson. I'll be streaming usually right after him, sometime between 11:30, 12:30 when he's usually logging off. But thanks for joining me tonight, guys. And I'll be doing some more takedowns. I'll be doing some more state legalization states and burning through some more independent news tomorrow. See you guys.